Over the past few months, I've been diving into different parts of Minecraft that I've always felt were a bit underwhelming, trying to improve them through new ideas, features, and fixes. Whether it was through giving forgotten items a purpose, reworking old mechanics, or bringing back fan-favorite concepts from past mob and biome votes, the goal has always been the same: keep that vanilla feel while showing how much more the game could be. A lot of you have really enjoyed seeing these ideas brought to life, and since 2025 has already come to an end, I wanted to do something special. So in this video, I've gathered the most beloved features I've made so far, combined them into one massive showcase, and even included improvements based on your feedback. So sit back and relax. This is going to be a long one, but hopefully a satisfying journey through some of the best ideas we've built together, starting with none other than the boat. Now, boats in Minecraft aren't bad. In fact, they're pretty solid, especially with the recent addition of leashable boats. They get the job done efficiently. They're cheap, easy to craft, and accessible to everyone. For most players, boats are more than enough to cross oceans. But let's be honest, boat rides are kind of boring. So instead of just tweaking their mechanics, I wanted to make boats not only better, but more exciting. Let's start with functionality. Introducing the bubble jump mechanic. If you place soul sand deep underwater and ride your boat over the bubble column it creates, your boat will be launched into the air. The deeper the soul sand, the higher the launch. This adds a new layer of creativity and movement to water travel. Next up, customization. You can now attach a banner to your boat, turning it into a sailboat. Not only can you proudly display your faction's banner, but the sail also gives your boat a speed boost. But why represent your faction at sea if there's no one to fight? Right now, the ocean is practically empty. The only threat is the occasional drowned. And let's be honest, there's no threat at all if you're in a boat. So I decided to fix that too. Introducing Illager Pirates. If the Illagers are supposed to be this evil organized offshoot of villagers, it really doesn't make sense that they've completely ignored the ocean. It simply makes sense that they'd absolutely want control over the seas too. So now, while sailing across oceans, there's a small chance you'll be ambushed by a pirate patrol, which is essentially the ocean equivalent of the Illager patrols you encounter on land. These Illagers ride in boats, and just like their land-based equivalents, they want to kill you. Defeating a pirate patrol gives you an ominous bottle, just like normal patrols. If you approach a buried treasure chest while having bad omen, a pirate ambush is guaranteed. Much like villager raids, pirate attacks come in waves. This introduces new boat types, medium boats and big boats that can carry up to 4 players or mobs. Some pirate ships are packed with loot, while others with pirates. You'll also encounter new Illager variants like the Captain Illager, who has a parrot on his shoulder, and standard pirate Illagers armed with crossbows, including modified versions that fire fireworks. Some variants of the Illager pirates also wield a spear, and while the ones armed with crossbows mostly remain seated in their boats, the ones with the spears can dismount and charge head-on. Pirate raids would also have a chance to spawn with boats made from different wood types. Imagine stumbling across a mangrove pirate fleet or getting attacked by cherrywood pirates. And after surviving the fight, you sail away with these unique vibrant pink pirate boats as your reward. While looting a pirate raid, you'll come across the boat upgrade template, which just like regular templates can be duplicated. This means that once you've defeated the pirate raid, you can unlock the ability to craft larger boats. You can use the upgrade template on a regular boat to make a medium boat, or on a medium boat to make a large boat. Essentially, it works like a blueprint that you can only obtain by defeating a pirate raid, and once you discover it, you unlock the ability to craft bigger boats. The big boat comes with some serious advantages. It can carry up to 4 players or mobs, making it great for multiplayer travel or mob transportation. You can also put free chests in it if you decide to sail across the ocean solo. It also supports up to 2 banners, and the more banners it has, the faster it sails across the ocean. But sailboats and the medium and big boats aren't without their trade-offs. Yes, they're faster than regular boats, especially when fitted with banners, but the speed comes at a cost of maneuverability. First, the large boats take much longer to accelerate, so they will start off slow but gradually build up speed over time. You can offset this by having multiple people rowing at once. The more players row, the faster the boat accelerates and the higher its top speed compared to just a single person rowing. To avoid chaos with everybody trying to steer in different directions, only one person at the front controls the rotation, while the others strictly help to propel the boat forward. Next up, a regular boat can rotate a full 360 degrees in about 2.5 seconds. Meanwhile, a big boat takes a full 7.5 seconds to complete the same turn. So now, players are faced with a real decision. Do you want raw speed for long distance sailing or tight control for navigating rivers or fighting pirates? With an update like this, boats and especially ocean exploration could become way more interesting. And while we are already on the topic of villagers, Minecraft Dungeons has a vast variety in Illager variants, and the one I decided to add is the Illager Chef. Now you might ask yourself, why the Illager Chef out of all the possible Illager types? The one mob that seems like the most boring variant among them all. You might have a point there, but the Illager Chef comes with a whole new game mechanic attached to it. The Illager Chef also looks pretty goofy, and honestly, I'd love to have it in the game even if it fills a small, almost insignificant role. It would now have a designated room inside Woodland Mansions, the kitchen. The Illager Chef provides all Illagers with food, and you can see it carrying around a ladle, which it uses both to cook and to attack if you happen to interrupt its work. When killed, it has a high chance of dropping this ladle, which you can then use to make soups of your own. So yes, I'm adding an entirely new soup making mechanic to the game. Just bear with me. Place a cauldron on top of a fire source, you can even set it directly over a campfire for a neat one-block setup, fill it with water, and you're ready to start cooking. The cauldron accepts up to 4 ingredients. When you right-click with an ingredient, it will appear visually inside the cauldron, so you can keep track of what you've added. You can then remove ingredients by right-clicking with your empty hand. At this point, the choice is yours. Throw in any raw ingredients you want, meat, vegetables, or even any special items like golden apples, carrots, or a potion. Once you're satisfied with your recipe, right-click the cauldron with the ladle to start stirring. Once the cooking begins, there's no turning back. After a short while, the ingredients blend together, changing the color of the liquid based on what you've put inside. Congratulations, you've just made soup. Now all you need is a bowl and you've got yourself a delicious stew. To make this process actually worth it, bowls can now stack up to 16, and the soup itself combines the properties of all of its ingredients, keeping your hunger filled for a long time. Special ingredients like golden apples will carry their effects into the stew, and the same goes for potions, meaning you can create mixes that give both status effects and hunger restoration in one meal. This new soup making feature might be a niche addition, but it's a fun one, perfect for players who love experimenting with ingredients and discovering the perfect concoction. And yes, the Illager Chef also drops a random soup upon death, but the soup making process can also go very wrong if you try to mix ingredients that were never meant to be mixed together. If you add 2 different potions into the same cauldron, it will become unstable, quickly overflow, and then explode, leaving behind a puddle of purple goo. Out of that goo, pink goo slimes emerge, carrying the very potion effects you try to combine. If the potions you mixed were harmful ones, the slimes will inflict those same effects on you when they hit. But if the potions were positive, those effects will instead apply to the goo slimes themselves. This mechanic serves as a warning toward the forbidden rule that you should never, under any circumstances, mix 2 potions together. To ensure that the soup making mechanic isn't too overpowered, enchanted apples will also be included on the list of forbidden ingredients. So now you can accidentally create your own back alley science experiment gone wrong right in your Minecraft house. But the cauldron itself could also need a bit of a revamp. It's not totally pointless, but it's one of those features that feels unfinished. Cauldrons actually do have a decent number of uses. You can use them to remove dye from leather armor, banners, and even shulker boxes. They can extinguish you if you're on fire, even in the nether, and they will collect rainwater if left out during a storm. You can even store lava and powdered snow in the cauldrons. On paper, they sound pretty versatile, but here's the thing. If cauldrons can already strip color from a few select items, why not expand that to more blocks or items? Let us wash dye off of wool, terracotta, stained glass, candles, basically anything craftable with dye. It would be a convenient way to undo mistakes or repurpose materials without needing to craft from scratch every time. But we're not done yet. Cauldrons now become mini crafting stations for slime, honey, and magma blocks. Toss in 4 of each corresponding item and you've got yourself a full block right there in the cauldron. And speaking of honey, place a cauldron beneath a bee nest and it will slowly fill up with honey, just like a lava dripping into a cauldron from above. It's a small tweak that makes honey farming way less tedious and way more intuitive. That's not all though. Water in cauldrons now freezes in cold biomes, turning into ice, and you can finally place a hopper underneath to collect what's inside. Plus, dispensers now work with cauldrons, opening up new redstone possibilities for automated lava, ice, or honey farms. And to top it all off, let's bring bedrock and java cauldrons into full parity. Let players fill cauldrons with potions, which would apply the effects to anyone who jumps in, and give us the ability to dye the water itself, so we can dip items directly into the color we want, without the need for crafting tables. But how about customizing arrows using the Fletching Table? The Fletching Table has been in the game for a while, and unlike the Smithing Table, which has gradually gained more functionality, the Fletching Table hasn't really had a purpose. Sure, you can use it to give a villager the Fletcher job, but the block itself doesn't do anything. That's why the Fletching Table could finally get a meaningful use by letting players craft arrows with unique functionalities. You could combine potion effects into a single arrow, make effects stronger or last longer, or even craft a quiver that works like a bundle, so you don't have to fill your inventory with dozens of arrow types. Tipped arrows come equipped with various various effects, things like healing, poison, night vision, and when you shoot a mob or player with one, that effect gets applied to the target. Sounds useful, right? Well, not really, because in practice, most of these arrows just don't get used. The good effects like regeneration or healing are basically pointless. I mean, who's going to realistically shoot themselves with a healing arrow in survival mode? So here's the fix. Instead of only applying the effect to the exact target hit, tipped arrows should create a small area of effect cloud on impact, similar to lingering potions. Now, you just need to shoot near your target instead of hitting them dead on. Picture this, your friend's about to die running away from a group of monsters in the cave. You shoot a healing arrow in his path, which saves him, while at the same time damaging undead mobs. So you'd essentially kill two birds with one stone. Even for non-combat uses, this tweak makes a huge difference. Instead of carrying around multiple night vision potions, you could just bring a stack of night vision arrows and share the effect with your whole group in one shot. A simple change, but it finally gives tipped arrows a reason to be used. It would also make it so that you don't have to shoot the arrows up and wait to get hit for the effect to apply. Instead, you could just shoot underneath you, which would make it much easier to apply the effect directly to yourself without actually having to take damage. And in a situation where you're actively being chased down by a horde of mobs, this could come in handy. This change wouldn't all of a sudden revolutionize tipped arrows, but it would at least make them a bit more useful to actually consider using them. And that's just a start. This user has an interesting approach to the fletching table. Imagine being able to customize every part of the arrow, the base, the shaft, and even the tip. Use a phantom membrane instead of feathers to make a faster, more aerodynamic arrow. Swap the shaft for a blaze rod to create arrows that set blocks on fire, or a breeze rod for no gravity arrows. You could even use a prismarine shard as the tip for underwater arrows, or an amethyst shard to shatter fragile blocks like glass or shoot for certain blocks like leaves. You can even mix in some slime to make bouncy arrows, or add in some gunpowder to make them a bit explosive. You can mix and match and customize arrows to the maximum potential. The possibilities are endless, and while it doesn't have to be exactly like this, giving the fletching table a real use would finally make it a functional block. Following up, the next item on the list is the Glow Ink Sac. Glow ink sacs are dropped by glow squids and can currently be used to make text on signs glow or to craft glowing item frames that highlight their contents. And that's pretty much it. A mob that was voted into the game purely for its aesthetic glow underwater, and even the glow is barely noticeable, so why stop there? Why should the glow ink sac be limited to just signs and item frames? Let's expand its functionality. Starting with banners, now you can right click a patterned banner with a glow ink sac to make the pattern itself emit a soft glow, making your banner stand out. Additionally, decorated pots would also benefit from this. Right-clicking a pot would let you make each individual face glow, allowing you to highlight your favorite archaeological designs and to really highlight its ancient ambience. But the most exciting new use would be for armor trims. Combine a glow ink sac with trimmed armor to add a subtle glow effect. The trims would now be able to shine in dark environments to really emphasize your presence. And just for fun, if you use a glow ink sac on a sheep, the wool will start glowing, which could essentially be a silly little Easter egg, but it's still not enough. Glow ink sacs can now be used to craft glow torches, which would be a cheap, early game underwater light source that doesn't get washed away by water. Altogether, these small tweaks would expand the functionality of the item and finally give the glow ink sac the glow up it deserves. Moving on, the next item on the list is the Phantom Membrane. The Phantom Membrane is dropped by arguably one of the most annoying mobs in the game, the Phantom. Its current uses are extremely limited. You can repair elytras with it or use it to brew slow falling potions. But let's be honest, once your elytra has mending, the Phantom Membrane becomes pretty much useless. So let's change that by giving it a set of upgrades similar to the Glow Ink Sac. First up, combine the Phantom Membrane with an item frame and you'll get a clear item frame. This acts like the invisible item frame you can get through commands, letting you display items without the wooden border ruining the aesthetic. For convenience, the frame wouldn't be fully invisible when empty, so players can still locate and interact with it easily. Next, right-click a sign with the Phantom Membrane and it becomes invisible, leaving only a text floating in the air. Suddenly, you can write messages directly onto walls without the visual clutter of a sign, opening up endless design possibilities. And finally, let's take it one step further. Use a Phantom Membrane on the banner and the banner itself disappears, leaving only the pattern behind. Whether you're creating street art or hidden symbols on your build, this allows for an entirely new layer of creative expression. All three of these features would give Phantom Membranes an exciting new purpose, granting players greater creative control and breathing new life into one of the most overlooked items in the game. Next on the list is perhaps one of the most useless items in the entire game, especially if you're playing in hardcore mode, the Echo Shard. Echo shards are found in ancient city chests, and they currently have just one use: crafting a recovery compass. It's a neat concept, a compass that points to your last death location, but this becomes completely obsolete in hardcore, where dying ends the game entirely. Even outside hardcore, it's a niche tool that's not particularly exciting or worth the risk of looting an ancient city, so let's give echo shards an overhaul. You can now combine echo shards with an armor trim to give it the echoing effect, much like the pulsating glow of the Warden's heart. The effect would cause the trimmed pattern on your armor to ripple and pulse subtly, giving it a powerful and mysterious aesthetic that feels worthy of the deep dark. But let's go further. Combine the echo shard with the glow ink sac, and the trim takes on a glowing, pulsating effect, combining the best of both items. These changes would turn the echo shard from a forgettable crafting item into a highly sought after cosmetic upgrade, letting players showcase their adventures into the deep dark with some of the most visually unique armor effects in the game. And the next feature that needs a revamp is the clock. Clocks have been in Minecraft forever, and they do exactly what you would expect: tell the time. Other than telling the time, clocks can also be used to distract piglins. And sure, on paper they sound kind of useful. I mean, how else are you supposed to know if it's day or night before crawling out of a cave, right? But in practice, most people don't actually use them. Experienced players rarely need to check the time, and by the time you can craft a clock, you're usually strong enough to leave a cave at night without worrying anyway. Most of the time, clocks end up as decorations, which, fair enough, is a valid use, just not a compelling one. So how do we make clocks more useful? First off, let's embrace the fact that clocks are mostly used as decoration and give the player the ability to place a clock directly onto the wall without an item frame. It immediately looks much cleaner and much cooler, but we're just getting started. If you right click a clock while holding it, it saves the current in-game time. Now, whenever you place that clock on a wall, it acts like an alarm clock. At that exact same time each Minecraft day, it sends out a redstone pulse. Hook it up to a bell, and now you've got an actual working alarm. And here's the cool part: you can even place it down on the floor, and it orients itself just like a mob head or an armor stand, based on the direction you're facing. That way you can build an actual alarm clock setup with a bell attached to it. But if you thought that's it, you'd be mistaken. If you place the clock on the floor and attach a bell to it, you can right click it repeatedly to crank it. Each click adds 5 seconds to the countdown. You can even shift right click to add an entire minute to it. Once it hits 0, the bell rings. This would essentially be a simple in-world stopwatch. And yes, there's even a survival use to it. When you accidentally summon the Warden, you can place down the clock, crank it, and run. When it rings, the Warden hears it, gets distracted, and walks over to investigate. Upon finding it, the Warden breaks the clock in frustration, buying you precious time to escape or sneak by. Suddenly, the clock isn't just decorative, it's a redstone tool and a survival gadget all rolled into one. So yeah, clocks aren't completely useless, but they could definitely need extra functionality. The next major feature that's in desperate need of an update is the Minecart. Minecarts have been in the game forever, and while the game has continuously evolved, minecarts have pretty much remained in the same state as they were when they were first added into the game. Perhaps the biggest issue with minecarts is that they are capped at a speed of 8 blocks per second, while something like boats on blue ice can reach a ridiculous speed of 73 blocks per second. The fact that minecarts require extensive setup but they are still trash makes it much more disappointing. Yes, Mojang did add a game rule to tweak minecart speed, but it's not really practical for survival players, and it doesn't do much to address the minecart's core issues. But I think I have the solution to the problem. First off, the most revolutionary change would be to chain minecarts together. You should be able to link up to 8 minecarts to form a proper train, allowing you to transport players and large quantities of items together across long distances. But chaining alone isn't enough. That's why we also need to increase their top speed from 8 blocks per second to 48. Suddenly they're not just viable, but they're competitive. Next, add an acceleration meter to the minecart, a simple UI element that replaces the XP bar, similar to how it works when riding a horse. This meter would allow players to set and maintain a fixed speed. You would just hold down W briefly to accelerate to your desired speed, then release the key, and the minecart would continue moving at that pace automatically. And here's the important part. Minecarts only change speed when the player interacts with them. Existing redstone contraptions remain untouched. If you never touch the acceleration meter, your minecart will still move at the old 8 blocks per second. But let's be real, while old minecarts would more or less be untouched, relying on players to manually set the speed of every new minecart isn't exactly reliable, especially when it comes to hopper minecarts, which you cannot really change the speed of manually. Redstone machines often need to move at exactly 8 blocks per second to stay in sync, and any disruption could end up ruining the whole contraption. That's why I'm adding a brand new block, the copper rail. Right-click it to set a specific speed, and once activated, any minecart that passes over it will automatically switch to that speed, without requiring player input. Think of it as an automatic speed controller. You can even pair it with a delayed redstone signal to stop a train at a station for a few seconds before sending it off again. This opens the door for fully automated train networks with precise programmable timing, all without breaking existing redstone contraptions. Now you can calibrate minecars to move at your exact desired speed while keeping your old machines running just as they always have. You could accelerate or decelerate at will, whether it is automatically or manually, making this perfect for long distance or even AFK travel without needing constant input. Now for accessibility. Rail crafting needs an update. You now get 16 powered rails instead of 6 and 32 regular rails instead of 16. This makes building tracks more accessible and less grindy, especially in early survival. And finally, let's rework the furnace minecart. Instead of the furnace minecart, replace it with a blast furnace minecart. This new variant would run on any fuel, including lava buckets, and come with a fuel meter for easy tracking. Just attach it to the front of your train and it powers everything behind it without the need for powered rails. But if you do use powered rails, you can push the speed even further, up to 64 blocks per second. With a few key changes, minecarts could once again become one of the most exciting and customizable transportation systems in Minecraft. The final transportation method that needs an update is the horse. Horses seem like a solid alternative to walking. If you are lucky enough to tame a moderately fast one that can also jump more than a single block, you can travel much more efficiently. You can even crossbreed horses to get a maxed out one, though for most players the effort probably isn't worth it. At first, horses seem like an okay method of transport, until you stumble across an ocean, at which point the horse becomes a bit of a headache. And if you stumble across a cave and want to explore it, you either have to abandon your horse, dig a hole to keep it from wandering off, or tie it up and hope you find your way back later. All the time you save by riding the horse suddenly disappears as you're forced to problem solve around its limitations. And just like that, horses stop feeling like a solution and start feeling like an inconvenience. So let's give the horse a set of upgrades that would make it a worthy competitor to even the Elytra. First off, let's start with the most obvious. Horse armor should be enchantable. Protection, blast protection, projectile protection, and even fire protection. All of it. But that's just the beginning. Horses should be able to carry more than just a player. Why not let us put a villager on the horse too? Mob transportation has always been a pain, especially in the late game. Being able to ride a horse with a mob passenger would make the horses not only faster, but also far more practical. Next up, horseshoes. I'm introducing a brand new equipment slot just for them. Like horse armor, horseshoes can be found in dungeons and come in iron, gold, diamond, and netherite tiers. Each tier makes your horse faster and able to jump higher. Even better, horseshoes can be enchanted. Feather falling to reduce fall damage, frostwalker to let your horse run across rivers without slowing down, and soul speed to zoom across soul sand valleys. With frostwalker shoes, suddenly water isn't a problem anymore. You can just ride across the ocean. Horseshoes also come with a combat bonus, a trampling effect. When you ride through hostile mobs, they get knocked back and take damage. The stronger the shoes, the greater the knockback and damage dealt. But we are not done. Horses now have improved terrain handling. They now handle forests much better. Horses can now clip through leaves horizontally while moving, allowing you to ride through the dense forest without constantly getting stuck. And don't worry, they can still stand on top of leaves, so you won't fall through trees when going over a dark oak forest. But what about convenience? Horses are often a burden once you've reached your destination. You leave them tied to a fence and then forget where you parked. That's where the goat horn comes in. If your horse is lost, simply right-clicking with a goat horn will apply a glow effect to your horse, which you can then use to find your horse more easily. You can now also throw an ender pearl to teleport the horse with you. And to make your life a bit easier, you could use a goat horn to give your pets a glowing effect. That way, if they ever wander off, you'll be able to spot them right away. Let's continue with a small but surprisingly satisfying suggestion for the watermelon. The community noticed that the watermelon texture in Minecraft is a little off. The stem doesn't actually line up with the top point of the melon, which makes it look kind of awkward. So let's fix that. Now it would be easy to simply rotate the watermelon texture 90 degrees, but we can also extend the stem to actually connect to the top of the block without having to rotate the block itself. Also, it should really be called watermelon instead of just melon. Not sure why Mojang hasn't fixed that yet, but let's not stop there. Right now, regular melons are hardly considered valuable. They only restore a single hunger point per slice and rank among the worst food sources in terms of saturation. On top of that, melons require more space to grow than most other crops. Their only real advantage is convenience. You don't need to replant them, and you can compact them into blocks for storage or decoration. But let's be honest, once you've made it past your first few nights, melons quickly lose their appeal as a primary food source. So let's give them a unique twist. Now you would be able to right-click a melon block to eat it directly, just like you can with the cake. Each click would restore the equivalence of 2 melon slices worth of hunger and saturation, effectively speeding up the process of filling up your hunger bar. But the real focus here is the glistering melon. Why can't we eat it? Golden apples and golden carrots are edible, so it only makes sense that the glistering melon, especially given its use in brewing instant health potions, should also be consumable. Eating one would regenerate a single heart, functioning as a quick on-the-go healing item. On top of that, players should be able to craft glistering melon blocks that will serve both aesthetic and functional purposes. You can place one down, and just like that, you can right-click it to gain a short regeneration effect. It's a simple change that gives both melons and glistering melons an identity and utility they've always lacked, finally making them worth growing, crafting, and using even in the late game. Let's continue with the first losing biome from the 2018 biome vote, the Savanna. Originally, the Savanna biome was supposed to feature a brand new tree called the baobab tree, which would be the thickest tree in Minecraft. Baobab trees are commonly hollow on the inside due to natural decay over their thousands of years of existence. They can act as a water source since their trunks store moisture, or serve as a shelter for players looking to spend the night. The baobab tree would also grow baobab fruit, which could be a reliable early game food source. Baobab trees in real life are thick, have a fibrous inner bark that's soft, strong, and flexible, making it perfect for crafting ropes, just like this. Ropes work similarly to twisting and weeping vines from the nether, but they're much more accessible and practical. You can right-click the bottom of the rope to extend it upward, or right-click the top to lower it downward, making it a reliable tool for climbing and cave diving. The Savanna is also home to the termite mound. While it was never specified whether termites would be actual mobs or just a block, I decided to make them into a mob. Much like the bee, the termite is significantly larger than its real-life counterparts, and houses itself in termite mound blocks. Termites fester on decomposing plants and wood, and actively search for nearby trees to feed on, similar to how bees search for flowers to pollinate. The termite functions more like a parasitic outbreak. If you try chopping down a tree near a termite mound, you'll notice that the logs are hollow, since termites feed on the inside of the wood, leaving only the outer layer behind. These hollow logs also serve as housing for termites, meaning termite mounds can be found inside the logs themselves, allowing the infestation to spread. To prevent them from taking over the entire world, termites can only spread within a certain radius of the original mound block. There is also an effective way to combat termite outbreaks, which I will talk about later in the video since it's tied to another feature. The hollow log can also be harvested. While it only yields a single plank, its true value lies in its decorative ability and useful properties. You can right-click the hollow log with almost any block to store it inside, allowing for creative combinations and unique designs. Blocks like flower pots, moss, mushroom, and other similar items can be placed directly inside, making the hollow log a highly customizable and a dynamic decorative block. Beyond decoration, the hollow log also has a practical farming use. It can be used to reinforce farmland. By placing a hollow log down and filling it with dirt, you can then till the dirt inside the frame to create protected farmland. This wooden border prevents crops from being trampled by players or mobs, acting as a sort of natural fence. You can even pour water into the log and place a glass block in it to safely hydrate the soil while preventing accidental falls into the water source block. It's a functional and visually appealing way to upgrade your farms. But all of this isn't even the main attraction of the Savanna biome. The real spotlight goes to the ostrich, with its tall frame and long curved neck. Ostriches are mostly neutral and will run away if you attack them, and will stick their heads in the ground if they feel like they're in danger. However, they become territorial when it comes to their young. You can breed ostriches, after which they will lay an egg. Ostriches prefer to lay their eggs in shaded areas, often choosing the space beneath a baobab tree. While usually peaceful, an ostrich will turn aggressive and attack with its powerful neck strikes if you get too close to its egg. They will also sit on their eggs to incubate them until they hatch. Once the baby ostrich is born, the parent becomes even more protective, much like a polar bear, and will attack you if you approach its young. If you feed a baby ostrich, it will begin to trust you. Once it grows up, you can put a saddle on it and ride it. Riding an ostrich offers a unique experience unlike any other mount in the game. Known as the fastest bird on land, the ostrich doesn't start out fast. It gradually accelerates the longer you ride it. However, it loses momentum when climbing vertically. To make the most of an ostrich's speed, players are encouraged to flatten terrain and create long, uninterrupted strips of land. sand. On a straight, horizontal path with no obstacles, an ostrich can accelerate to impressive speeds, rivaling even the ice boating method. While not quite as fast as ice boats, ostriches make up for it by not requiring the tedious setup that ice boating does, making them a more practical option for fast overland travel. The next losing biome from the 2018 biome vote is the desert. Now the desert can certainly benefit from an update, especially one that features a new mob, since deserts can often feel pretty barren and devoid of life. First up, the desert now features the new palm tree, which can grow all across the landscape, but more importantly, deserts now pose a brand new challenge for the player. Sandstorms are a rare weather event that usually happens during thunderstorms. When a sandstorm rolls in, visibility drops significantly, making it really hard to see far ahead. If you're walking against the direction of the wind, it will slow you down quite a bit, but if you move with the wind, it actually speeds you up, letting you travel faster across the desert. So while sandstorms make it harder to see and move in certain directions, they're also your best chance at traveling long distances quickly. But while the desert is harsh, there's one place that offers complete protection, the desert oasis. These rare spots are a true paradise in the middle of the dry wasteland, surrounded by palm trees and patches of lush grass. You will find more palm trees here than anywhere else, and it really feels like nature is alive again, even in the middle of a scorching desert. And since I added palm trees, it would be a shame not to add coconuts. Palm trees now grow coconuts, and once ripe, the coconuts have a chance to fall down from the tree. If you're unlucky enough to be standing underneath one, it acts like dripstone and can deal a hefty amount of damage. But if you collect one, you will get the coconut item. Now the coconut is more than just a fruit. It's actually a ground-based projectile. You can throw it at mobs or players and it will bounce off walls and roll around like a bowling ball. It's pretty fun to use in combat or just mess around with. But if you'd rather use it for survival, you can throw it into the crafting grid to open it up. Once eaten, the leftover shell doesn't just disappear either. You get an empty coconut shell which you can use as a bowl or even as fuel. It's a small detail, but it adds a lot of character. That's not all though. If you place a cauldron underneath a coconut, over time it will slowly fill up with coconut juice. You can right-click a cauldron with a bottle to extract coconut oil. This opens up a ton of possibilities. Coconut oil can be used to lubricate things like doors, trapdoors, or even pistons, removing their sound entirely. You can right-click blocks with coconut oil to make them slippery like ice. And yes, you can even use it to craft candles. But the real highlight of the desert update would be meerkats. Meerkats spawn in groups and are some of the most interesting mobs in the desert. They are excellent scavengers that feed exclusively on insects, so they'll naturally hunt down termites, spiders, and even silverfish. Whenever they kill their prey, they collect their loot and take it back to their burrows. You'll often see them digging in the sand to build their little houses, and they'll store any item they find inside them. That includes mob drops and even any random items they come across on the ground. If you want to access the loot inside the burrow, all you need to do is brush the burrow block, kind of like how you'd uncover suspicious sand. They will also occasionally stand on their hind legs and look around for danger, adding some personality to their behavior. Now if you feed the meerkat some seeds, it will help you locate the nearest desert structures, kind of like how dolphins guide you to ocean ruins. But if you really want to make one your own, you can tame it using a fermented spider eye. Once tamed, meerkats become incredibly useful as a natural form of pest control. If you bring one near a termite infestation, it will automatically start digging into the termite mound and clear it out for you. You can also bring it with you into a stronghold, and it will sniff out and destroy any hidden silverfish from inside the blocks. Overall, meerkats are playful animals that bring the desert to life and give you a really fun and useful way to deal with insect outbreaks, whether you're in the wild or at home. The next losing biome is from the 2019 biome vote, the Badlands. The Badlands generate large amount of terracotta and extra gold, but even with that, the biome still feels incredibly underwhelming. Now, the Badlands feature a new type of cactus that grows out arms, unlike the regular cactus, which only grows straight upward. This cactus also blooms a unique flower, an edible cactus flower with light regenerative properties. The Badlands also introduce a brand new feature, tumbleweeds. Tumbleweeds roll across the land, adding a great sense of atmosphere and fully embracing the western style of the biome. They spawn most frequently in the Badlands, but can also occasionally be found in deserts. But tumbleweeds are far more than just decoration. You can search them for all sorts of loot, anything from sticks, dead bushes, cobwebs, string, and seeds, to even gold or iron nuggets and saplings. You can also build tumbleweed catchers using hollow logs or cobwebs to create tumbleweed farms. They are extremely flammable as well, bursting into flames and quickly disintegrating, disintegrating when set on fire. Interestingly, tumbleweeds also attract meerkats. Meerkats will chase after them and steal whatever items they contain, taking the loot back to their burrows. This creates a clever interaction. You can combine tumbleweed catchers with meerkats to make an automatic tumbleweed farm. Just brush the burrows to retrieve the stored loot. To really embrace the Western vibe, the Badlands should also include a new Western-style village, making the biome feel more lived in and exciting to explore. But the highlight of the Badlands biome would have to be the vulture. The vulture would finally introduce a new flying mob to the game, giving the skies more personality. As a master scavenger, it soars across the landscape searching for loot. Vultures are drawn to undead mobs and will circle around them, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Undead mobs fear them and will try to avoid them whenever possible. Vultures are also drawn to weak players and to loot dropped by players who have died. They're usually passive unless you're low on health, in which case they will take the opportunity to attack. They'll also defend themselves if you strike them or get too close to their nests. Yes, vultures have nests. They often collect loot and store it in their nest blocks, and you can even feed them rotten flesh to breed them. After breeding, they will lay an egg at their nest where they tend to stay when not flying. You can try to steal the egg, but be warned, doing so will cause nearby vultures to attack. If you manage to steal both the egg and the nest block, you can hatch and raise a baby vulture at home. The vulture needs the nest block to grow, and feeding it rotten flesh will speed up the process. Once it becomes an adult, it will patrol the skies around its nest block, protecting your base from undead mobs. But that's not all. Vultures also protect you from threats in the sky. They hate phantoms and will actively hunt them down. If you have a vulture flying around your base, you will never have to worry about phantoms again, making the vulture one of the most effective base defense mobs in the game. Let's continue with Mob A from the 2017 mob vote, the Barnacle. Also known as the monster of the ocean depths, the Barnacle was one of the most mysterious entries in the very first mob vote back in 2017. It was originally designed to make oceans scarier, latching onto players with its long tongue and dragging them down to the ocean floor, where they would eventually drown. But beyond that terrifying concept, we never got much else. Now, while many players are excited about the idea of a Barnacle, a big part of the community is against it, worried it would end up just like the Phantom, more annoying than fun. And honestly, I can see where they're coming from. So instead of making the Barnacle spawn anywhere in the ocean, I think it should be restricted to the deep ocean biome. That way you'd only ever encounter it if you dare to explore the darkest depths of the sea. This gives players the option to avoid the deep ocean entirely if they don't want to risk it. But if you do take the risk, that's where the Barnacle really shines. It doesn't just grab players. While swimming or boating over the deep ocean, the Barnacle can ambush you by firing out its tongue, latching onto your boat and slowly dragging you down into the depths. The more it pulls, the less control you have, until eventually the boat starts sinking and you're forced to abandon it and fight it head on. The moment you strike it, it changes its target instantly, sticking its tongue at you. To make things worse, it releases dark ink clouds into the water, completely blocking your vision and turning the fight much harder. If you manage to get it down to half of its health, the Barnacle detaches and flees, leaving behind another thick cloud of ink as a smokescreen. And it doesn't just target players. Barnacles can latch onto sea creatures too, acting like parasites. They will most often attach to a drowned or guardians, taking control over them, making them faster and stronger. With their ink bombs blinding you during combat, these fights spiral out of control quickly. And just when you think you've beat it, the Barnacle detaches from its host once either of their health drops too low, forcing you into a second phase of the battle. To make good use of the Nautilus's armor, the Barnacle will now actively hunt down any Nautilus. So if you're riding through the deep ocean with a Nautilus, the Barnacle will prioritize to attack the Nautilus instead of you, giving you even more of a reason to have one with you at all times. The Barnacle attaching itself to Guardians would also make sense in terms of lore, because it would explain why Guardians actively attack squids in the game, mistaking them for the Barnacle. If you actually manage to kill a Barnacle, the rewards would be worth it. Barnacles drop ink sacs along with their sharp teeth, which can be used to repair or even craft tridents. And of course, the spear would be especially effective against Barnacles, particularly if you're fighting them from the back of a Nautilus. Of course, there has to be some real incentive for players to explore the depths. Otherwise, most would avoid it altogether because of the dangers. Rare loot, unique materials, or even special enchantments could give players a reason to risk diving deeper into the abyss. Following the Barnacle is the Great Hunger. The only meaningful information we got about it was that it could open its massive mouth to consume items or even mobs, and that it has some connection to enchantments, possibly removing or adding them. But that vague idea was more or less absorbed into the grindstone, which already removes enchantments. So I decided to give this little guy a much more unique and exciting role. Now the Great Hunger becomes a living recycling machine, lurking deep underground. If you toss it an enchanted item, it devours it and spits out your item with half its original durability. durability, alongside with a downgraded Enchanted book. For example, if you feed it a Protection 4 diamond chestplate, it returns the chestplate at 50% durability and a Protection 2 book. But that's not all. The Great Hunger has the unique ability to remove curses, including Curse of Vanishing and even Curse of Binding, something no other feature in Minecraft currently allows. And it doesn't just feed on enchantments. If you drop it a craftable item, it breaks it down, spitting out a random selection of half its crafting ingredients. Toss in an enchanting table and you might get 2 obsidian and a diamond back, but never the full recipe. It's unpredictable but incredibly useful when you're trying to salvage rare resources you no longer need. The Great Hunger is also very elusive. After being fed a few times, it burrows into the ground and disappears, meaning you'll have to track it down each time you want to use it again. It also refuses to consume items without crafting recipes, spitting them out untouched. With these features, the Great Hunger becomes a strange but valuable underground encounter, turning trash into treasure, and giving players a completely new way to salvage and recover what would otherwise go to waste. The final losing mob from the 2017 mob vote is the Wildfire. Previously known as the Hovering Inferno. Originally pitched as a stronger version of the Blaze, surrounded by 4 rotating shields and capable of unleashing a devastating shockwave attack, the Wildfire never made it into the game, but I believe it had way more potential than just being a tougher Blaze. In fact, it could have been a true boss similar to the Elder Guardian, especially since the Nether still lacks a native boss encounter, so I decided to bring it back and turn it into a challenge worthy of the Nether. The Wildfire now spawns in a sealed off chamber deep within Nether fortresses. When encountered, it's protected by 4 rotating flaming shields, each of which must be destroyed before you can deal damage to the Wildfire itself. These shields are durable, require multiple hits to break, and rotate quickly. Once its health drops below 50%, the Wildfire will retreat into lava and begin regenerating, not only healing itself but also rebuilding any destroyed shields. This forces the player to act fast or risk having to break its shields all over again, but it doesn't end there. When its health falls below 30%, the Wildfire enters Phase 2. Its body erupts in soulfire, turning blue and significantly more dangerous. In this state, it fires soulfire projectiles and moves faster, and its shields now reflect attacks with a burning knockback effect, making close-range combat far riskier. Defeating the Wildfire is no small feat, but the rewards are worth it. It drops a rare item called the Heart of the Nether, which can be used to craft the Wildfire shield, a special shield that sets the attacker on fire when you successfully block their hits. Even better, when the player's health drops below 30%, the shield transforms into a Soulfire shield, igniting attackers with Soulfire and knocking them back with a burst of force. You can also use the Heart of the Nether to craft a Soulfire Trident, a modified version of the regular Trident. It retains the standard Trident's mechanics but deals Soulfire damage. Crafting it requires a Heart of the Nether, Barnacle Teeth, and a Blaze Rod, giving both the Barnacle and Wildfire loot real synergy. The Wildfire also has a small chance to drop a unique armor trim, giving the helmet the gemstone-like core perfect for showing off your victory. With multi-phase mechanics, regenerating shields, and game-changing drops, the Wildfire becomes one of Minecraft's most intense and rewarding boss encounters, finally giving the Nether a worthy boss of its own. Next up is the Glare. The first mob vote loser from 2021. Originally, the Glare was meant to spawn in caves and fly toward dark areas, grumbling to let you know mobs could spawn there. But let's be honest, that's not very useful when you can just press F3 and check the light level yourself. It's surely cute, but would ultimately be useless. So instead, let's completely reimagine the Glare. Now, it's a rare friendly mob found in lush caves, and it loves glowberries. So much so that it actually grows them on its body. You can shear the Glare to harvest its glowberries, but its main function would be to provide light. If it has a glowberry grown on it, the Glare acts like a flying lantern, glowing softly and lighting up the area around it wherever it floats. Feed it a glowberry and it will start following you around temporarily. But that's not all. The Glare now has emotional states, represented by its eyes. If no hostile mobs are nearby, within 20 blocks, the Glare is calm. If one gets closer, it gets restless, then agitated at 15 blocks, angry at 10 blocks, and furious if a hostile mob is within 5 blocks. It also makes sounds that reflect its mood, growls when things get worse, and chirps when it feels safer again. On top of that, the Glare will detect where mobs are. It will physically stare toward the nearest hostile mob, even if it's through walls, above you, or deep underground. But this helpful little creature comes with downsides too. It's weak and easily killed. It cannot be tamed or bred. It's still a wild animal. It doesn't tell you what mob is nearby or how many. And it's hungry. If you don't feed it regularly, it will slowly wilt, lose its glow, and eventually eventually wander off unless you keep feeding it glowberries. Even with its drawbacks, the glare would be a brilliant companion for cave exploration, lighting your path, alerting you to danger, and even providing a bit of food if you're desperate enough to shear it. But more than that, it would be one of the most expressive mobs in Minecraft, the first to truly show emotion and actively move its pupils around. The next feature I borrowed from the Dungeons game is a more convenient way to test your weapons, the target dummy. The target dummy is the perfect way to test out your weapons to their maximum potential. All you need to make one is a single hay bale and a pumpkin, and just like that, it's summoned. The dummy itself can't be removed by regular hits, so the only way to remove it is by using shears to destroy it. Once you do, it drops its materials back, letting you move it around whenever you want. The target dummy adds a simple yet incredibly practical way to test your weapons, enchants, and even potions. When you hit it, it shows a number that indicates exactly how much damage you've dealt. You can test how much damage you do when spamming attacks versus landing crits, how your sharpness 5 sword compares to fire aspect, or even how much damage smite does by equipping the target dummy with a zombie head. It also works with a player head, in which case the target dummy will take the appearance of that player. The coolest part is that you can equip the dummy with armor, letting you see how different gears affect your weapon's damage output. You can even set up moving targets for the perfect archery practice range. But perhaps one of the most unique features is that the target dummy emits a redstone signal based on the damage you deal. Imagine creating a door that only opens for someone with a sharpness 5 netherite sword, or a password protected entrance that requires the right damage combo from different weapons to unlock it. The possibilities would be endless, and honestly this might be one of the most practical additions to combat in Minecraft. And yet the target dummy has another completely unrelated use, but to get to that I'll have to introduce the next feature, the Raven. Now in Minecraft Dungeons, the Raven mostly serves an aesthetic purpose, but in the base game, there's a lot more that could be done with it. Minecraft has very little life in its skies, phantoms aren't exactly the best representation of life, and parrots, while fun, only spawn in jungles, and even then, they don't really fly around in the sky to make your world feel alive. The Raven would fix that entirely. Ravens are incredibly intelligent, curious, and cautious creatures. They are naturally attracted to anything shiny, whether it's gold, diamonds, or even emeralds. They might also be drawn to players' shiny armor, and especially enchanted gear. But their curiosity doesn't stop there. Ravens interact with things they find interesting, pressing buttons, opening chests and doors, ringing bells, or even poking at note blocks. Basically, if you can interact with the block, there's a chance a Raven will mess with it. And yes, that includes crops. Ravens may occasionally swoop down onto your wheat farm and nibble at your crops. They won't destroy them, but each peck will reduce a crop's growth stage, similar to how rabbits eat carrots. To keep them away, you can simply run toward them to scare them off, or more effectively, place a target dummy near your farm. The dummy will discourage ravens from landing too close, acting as a sort of scarecrow. But of course, not every raven has to be a nuisance. You can actually domesticate them. All it takes is something shiny to catch their attention, a gold nugget on the ground, or even you wearing golden armor to spark their curiosity. Once they're interested, slowly crouch toward them and feed them a sweet berry. If they accept, the raven will begin to trust you, and you can stop crouching. To really make use of your new feathered companion, you'll need a perch glove. Crafted from 2 pieces of leather. Right-click your tamed raven while holding the glove and it will perch on your hand. The best part is, once perched, you can actually train the raven to perform certain commands. Point at an item on the ground and right-click, and it will swoop toward the item to grab it and bring it back to you. Hover your crosshair over any interactable block and it will briefly glow white, indicating that the raven can perform a task on that block. Right-click while aiming at it and the raven will fly over and interact with the block. By feeding your raven a sweet berry after it performs an action, you can reinforce that behavior. Over time, it starts to remember what you taught it, repeating that action whenever you're nearby. So if you wanted to ring a bell when you return home, or press a button to start your farm, your clever raven got you covered. Though, the raven isn't like other pets that just teleport to you. If you want to bring your raven along, you'll need to hold something shiny, and it will fly toward you when it sees it. Alternatively, you can use the perch glove to call it over from long distances, or carry it around. In a way, the raven is a reimagined version of what the copper golem was supposed to be when it was first introduced, that being a curious little creature that presses copper buttons at random. But unlike the copper golem, the raven takes the original idea and expands on it, adding more depth and purpose to the mechanic. Another feature the Dungeons game is well admired for is its Enderman lineup, featuring several unique and eerie Enderman designs, and the one I find the most interesting is the Endersent. If you thought the regular Enderman was tall, the Endersent takes that to a whole new level. Standing at a towering 6 blocks tall, or 2 Endermen stacked on top of each other, the Endersent has the potential to be one of the most terrifying enemies in the entire game. It primarily spawns in the end, but just like regular Endermen, it can also rarely appear in other dimensions. The Endersent has a glowing Eye of Ender mounted on its chest, and while it slowly wanders when idle, that eye is far from being just a decorative detail. It follows your every move. The Endersent itself is neutral, but contrary to the regular Enderman that gets aggressive if you look into its eyes, the Endersent's chest eye detects movement. You'll see its pupils shift around as it scans for potential targets. If you're within its vicinity and move too much, the eye becomes suspicious, and you'll receive a notice notifying you that the eye is observing you. From that moment, the only way to stay undetected is to freeze completely. The eye only tracks movement, so if you stand still long enough, you'll eventually get another notice that it's no longer observing you, at which point you're safe to move. But if you move even slightly during that phase, the eye will instantly detect you, triggering the Endersent's aggression. Once it detects you, the Endersent teleports away, leaving you on edge, because you know it's out there about to strike. Moments later, it reappears to attack with its massive hammer-shaped hands, smashing the ground with both its arms and dealing heavy damage. It also has a special move, the teleport smash. The Endersent raises one arm toward its target before teleporting behind them, smashing both arms down with immense force and dealing devastating damage. Upon death, the Endersent has a high chance of dropping its eye, meaning that you technically don't have to go to the Nether to complete the game, even though the difficulty of the Endersent is not really worth it for the single Eye of Ender it can drop. And while the Endersent exudes this eerie aura of fear, another feature from the Dungeons game I've added is the Clam. The clam feels like the kind of feature that belongs on the seabed. Clams would spawn scattered across the ocean floor, most often in deep oceans, blending into the terrain until a player stumbles across one. Opening a clam would reveal whatever it's hiding inside, usually something simple like sand, gravel, or coal, but sometimes a rare pearl, and on very rare occasions even the heart of the sea. That way, buried treasures still guarantee you the heart, but clams add a new renewable way to find one without replacing treasure hunting entirely. Clams aren't just about loot though. If you leave one underwater and open, it slowly collects sediment. If it's placed over a sand block, it eventually produces sand. If you put it over gravel, it produces gravel, and even dirt, finally giving players a natural way to farm those materials. Pearls from clams could also serve a decorative purpose. You turn the pearls into a new pearl block, or simply trade the pearl with a villager. On top of that, each clam works like a unique item display. It can hold a single item, and if the clam is broken, whatever it's holding stays safely inside. If you want it, you could even propose to your Minecraft girlfriend using the clam. The clam also has a very unique property. In Minecraft Dungeons, the clam is essentially a bounce pad that bounces the player up when you step over it. Let's give our clam a similar mechanic. You can now activate it with a redstone signal, and as soon as you stand on an activated clam, it will bounce you in the direction it opens, essentially giving us cannons in the game. You can also regulate the bounce strength through a redstone signal. The stronger the signal, the stronger it will bounce you off. It can also bounce off entities and even items. On the other hand, this would only work with a redstone signal, meaning it won't bounce things off if opened manually. The clam could certainly be a great addition to the oceans with some technical uses to it. And those were all the best features from the past few months, now polished and adjusted based on your feedback, all compiled into one video. If you think I missed a feature, let me know down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, subscribing, or sharing it with a friend. It really helps the channel out. I now have channel memberships, so you can support the channel if you wish to do so, and if you subscribe to the smiley tier, you can have your skin featured in the video. Hope to see you in the next video. Bye.